There's a war now entering its fifth year. A conflict that began with tanks rolling across a border in the pre-dawn darkness and has since consumed hundreds of thousands of lives, displaced tens of millions of people, and redefined the security architecture of Europe. Tonight, we bring you the full story of the war in Ukraine, how it started, how it has been fought, and where it stands right now. To understand this war, you have to understand that it didn't begin in 2022. The roots go back much further. Russia's hostility toward an independent, westward-leaning Ukraine had been building for years. In 2014, Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula and backed separatist forces in the eastern Donbas region, moves that KYV and the West condemned as illegal. Years of uneasy ceasefire agreements followed, but the underlying tensions never resolved. Then, on February 24, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin launched what he called a special military operation, a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The world watched in disbelief as Russian forces crossed from the north, south, and east simultaneously, with KYV itself in the crosshairs. What Putin expected to be a swift operation lasting days turned into one of the most grinding, costly wars in modern European history. Ukrainian forces, bolstered by weapons from the United States, the United Kingdom, and NATO allies, held the line. KYV did not fall, and Russia, rather than achieving a quick victory, found itself locked in a war of attrition that would drag on for years. The scale of suffering in this war has been staggering. According to former CIA Director William Burns, Russia has suffered approximately 1.1 million military casualties, killed or wounded, since the invasion began. Ukraine's losses are also severe. An estimate of around 400,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed or injured has been cited by multiple officials. The civilian toll has been immense. More than 10.6 million Ukrainians have been displaced, roughly 24% of the country's pre-invasion population of 44 million. Of those, approximately 3.7 million are internally displaced within Ukraine, while 6.9 million have fled abroad as international refugees. Cities that were once thriving have been reduced to rubble. Mariupolia, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Siversk, names that once meant little to the outside world have become synonymous with destruction. On the battlefield, this has been a war of slow, brutal attrition. Since the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022, Russia has seized roughly 29,000 square miles of Ukrainian territory, about 12% of the country, an area roughly equivalent to half the size of the state of Illinois. When you include Crimea and areas seized before the full-scale invasion, Russia controls approximately 20% of Ukraine's total territory, an area the size of the state of Pennsylvania. Russia's advances have been slow but consistent. According to analysis of data from the Institute for the Study of War, Russian forces seized approximately 746 square miles of Ukrainian territory between October 2025 and March 2026 alone, an average of about 4 square miles per day. Ukraine has pushed back wherever it can. Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky confirmed that Ukraine launched 3 major offensive operations in 2025. One in the Donetsk sector and to inside Russian territory in the Kursk and Belgrade regions. Operations that he said disrupted Russian plans to seize Donetsk Oblast entirely. On the war's 4th anniversary in February 2026, Ukrainian President Zelensky reported that Ukrainian forces had regained approximately 300 square kilometers of territory in southern Ukraine, with his commander-in-chief later revising that figure upward to 400 square kilometers. Russia has waged a relentless campaign against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure, particularly its energy grid, in an effort to break the will of the Ukrainian people through cold and darkness. Russia destroyed 60% of Ukraine's gas production ahead of the winter of 2025 to 2026. Ukraine's available electricity generating capacity has fallen from 33.7 gigawatts at the start of the invasion to just 14 gigawatts as of January 2026. The result has been devastating. KYV residents have faced up to 16 hours per day without power. with blackouts lasting several days in some parts of the country. Ukraine has fought back with a drone campaign of its own. Ukrainian drone strikes have been reported to have forced nearly 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity offline, with at least 70% of those shutdowns directly linked to Ukrainian strikes. On February 21, 2026, Ukraine struck the Vatkinsk missile factory deep inside Russia, about 1,200 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, using its domestically produced FP-5 Flamingo missile. It was the first time Ukraine had successfully struck a core Russian missile production facility with a heavy missile capability. The factory reportedly produces Russia's advanced Oreshnik ballistic missile. As the war grinds on, diplomatic efforts to end the fighting have intensified, with the return of Donald Trump to the White House becoming a major factor. Renewed negotiations began in 2025 after Trump became president. His administration formulated peace plans that were generally seen as more favorable toward Russia, but these offers were met with refusal from both Russia and Ukraine. By late December 2025, there were signs of potential breakthrough. Trump and Zelensky met at Mar-a-Lago, with both leaders citing major progress on a 20-point peace framework, describing it as roughly 90% agreed upon. Issues of territory, ceasefire terms, and Ukrainian approval remained unresolved. The Trump administration agreed during talks in Berlin to offer Ukraine certain security guarantees similar to those provided to NATO members, a significant concession. This came after Zelensky said he could agree to drop Ukraine's bid for NATO membership in exchange for such guarantees. Europe, too, has moved to play a greater security role. French President Macron and UK Prime Minister Starmer signed a declaration of intent with Zelensky in Paris, setting out the framework for British and French troops to be deployed inside Ukraine after a ceasefire, establishing military hubs and protected facilities to support Ukraine's defensive needs. But Russia has remained the biggest obstacle. Putin has ruled out any deployment of NATO member troops on Ukrainian soil. Russia has reaffirmed its demands, including Ukrainian recognition of Russian control over eastern regions and Crimea, and insisted there can be no ceasefire until a comprehensive settlement is agreed. Ukraine's own analysts remain deeply skeptical. As one QIV think tank noted, the country has tried ceasefire agreements before, in 2015, 2016, and 2017, and each time Russia broke them. As of April 2026, the war continues on every front: military, political, and economic. Russia's spring offensive is gaining momentum. In the final week of March 2026 alone, Russian forces advanced in or near 14 settlements, seizing another 17 square miles of Ukrainian territory. Russia's defense ministry declared on April 1st that its forces had completed control of the Luhansk region, though Ukraine had controlled only a tiny fraction of it at that point. Diplomatically, peace talks continue, but no ceasefire has been agreed. The United States wants a deal finalized by June so that Trump can focus his political attention elsewhere. Economically, both sides bear enormous strain. Ukraine's budget deficit stands at an estimated 18.5% of GDP. The Ukrainian currency has lost 32% of its value since the invasion. Russia, by contrast, has shown surprising economic resilience, posting cumulative growth of 8% from 2022 to 2025, though sustained by war spending and under the shadow of international sanctions. More than 4 years since Russian tanks crossed the border, the war in Ukraine has become one of the defining conflicts of our era. It has tested the limits of European security, the resolve of Western alliances, and the endurance of an entire nation. As Zelensky himself put it on the war's 4th anniversary, you can't say that we're losing the war. The question is whether we will win. That question, who wins, who loses, and what peace looks like, remains unanswered. The front lines shift daily. The missiles keep flying. The negotiations inch forward and fall back. And millions of Ukrainians remain far from home, waiting for a war that shows no clear sign of ending. This has been a special report.